You meet someone new today, maybe at work, maybe in line for coffee, maybe just a stranger who sits down next to you on a train. Before they say a single word, your brain has already made a decision about them. Not a guess, a decision, and it happened in less time than it took you to read this sentence. You didn't choose to make that decision. You didn't sit down and weigh the evidence. It simply arrived, fully formed, before your conscious mind even noticed there was a question to answer. And once it arrived, it didn't ask for your permission to shape everything that happened next. Scientists call this rapid judgment, a lot of things, but the real answer is far stranger than a simple first impression. Your brain isn't reading their outfit, or their haircut, or their handshake. It's running an ancient threat assessment program that was built for a world that no longer exists. A world with no police, no contracts, no background checks, just you, a stranger, and a single question that mattered more than anything else. Will this person help me, or will this person kill me? That question never went away. It just got buried under modern manners. Princeton psychologist Alexander Todorov spent years studying exactly how fast this judgment happens. His research found that people form trait impressions of a face, things like trustworthiness, competence, and likability, in about 1/10 of a second. 1/10, that's faster than you can blink twice. Your conscious mind hasn't even caught up yet, and your brain has already filed this person under safe or unsafe. Todorov's team ran the experiment over and over, flashing unfamiliar faces on a screen for fractions of a second and asking participants to rate them on trustworthiness. Giving people more time to look didn't really change the verdict. It just made them more confident in a decision their brain had already reached almost instantly. More time felt like more thought. It was just more certainty wrapped around the same snap judgment. Why so fast? Because, for most of human history, slow judgment got you killed. Picture an early human ancestor walking along a ridge. Another figure appears in the distance. There's no time to gather data, no time to ask polite questions. The body has to decide right now whether to keep walking, change direction, or run. The heart rate spikes before the mind even forms a single word. Sweat collects in the palms. Muscles tighten, ready to act on a decision that hasn't technically been made yet, because there was no time to make it consciously in the first place. This wasn't paranoia. It was arithmetic. A wrong guess in either direction carried a cost. Trust the wrong person, and you might lose your food, your safety, even your life. Distrust the right person, and you might lose an ally, a mate, a future. Natural selection doesn't reward perfect accuracy. It rewards whatever keeps you alive long enough to pass on your genes. And a fast, slightly wrong guess beats a slow, perfectly reasoned one almost every time a predator or a rival is involved. Anthropologists studying small-scale societies, hunter-gatherer groups still living without modern infrastructure, have observed this same instinct everywhere they look. Trust isn't a personality trait in these communities. It's a survival calculation, made fresh with every new face. Here's where it gets stranger. Your brain isn't actually built to evaluate trustworthiness accurately. It's built to evaluate it quickly. Todorov's work showed something unsettling. The facial features that make someone look trustworthy have almost nothing to do with whether they actually are. A slightly upturned mouth, wider set eyes, a rounder jaw. These cues echo something deeper, an ancient pattern recognition system trained on emotional expression, not character. A face that resembles a happy expression reads as trustworthy. A face that resembles an angry expression reads as dangerous, even when the person is doing absolutely nothing, even when their actual face is completely neutral. Think about that for a second. Bone structure, the exact width of a jaw, the natural resting position of a mouth, none of these things have any real connection to a person's honesty, their kindness, or their intentions. They are accidents of genetics, and yet your brain treats them like reliable evidence, because somewhere deep in its architecture, a rounder, softer face still resembles the relaxed, non-threatening expression of someone who isn't preparing to attack. A sharper, harder face still resembles tension, aggression, a body coiled for conflict. Your brain isn't reading the person, it's reading a resemblance, which means a stranger can look untrustworthy and be perfectly kind, and a stranger can look trustworthy and be lying to your face. Your 7-second decision was never about truth. It was about pattern matching to keep your ancestors alive. Does that mean the system is broken? Not exactly. It means the system was built for a different problem. For most of human history, you didn't meet strangers very often. Anthropologist Robin Dunbar's research on social group sizes suggests early humans lived in bands of maybe 50 to 150 people. Nearly everyone you ever met, you'd met before. A stranger was rare, and rare meant dangerous, statistically speaking, because a stranger appearing near your group usually meant one of two things: a potential ally, or a potential raid. Inside that band of 100, you didn't need snap judgments nearly as often. You knew who was generous, who was hot-tempered, who could be trusted with a secret and who couldn't. That knowledge built up slowly, over years of shared meals, shared danger, shared seasons. The 7-second judgment was reserved for the rare outsider, the traveler from another group, the figure who didn't belong to your web of known faces. It was a specialized tool, used sparingly, for a genuinely unusual situation, so your brain didn't evolve to make accurate judgments about millions of unique individuals. It evolved to make fast judgments about a tiny handful of unfamiliar faces. Just often enough to keep you breathing. Now flip to today. You don't live in a band of 150. You live in a world of strangers. You pass hundreds of unfamiliar faces a week, maybe more if you live in a city. Your ancient trust algorithm, the one tuned for rare high-stakes encounters, is now running constantly on autopilot, judging baristas and bus drivers and dating profiles, with the same circuitry once reserved for figures on a ridge. No wonder it's misfair. Think about how many strangers you've already half-judged today without realizing it. The delivery driver who left a package, the new coworker introduced in a meeting, the face on a profile you swiped past in under a second. Each one triggered the same ancient machinery, the machinery built for a ridge, a handful of figures a year, not a feed of thousands. Your brain wasn't designed for this volume. It just keeps running the only program it has. Princeton's research goes further. It turns out this snap judgment doesn't just evaluate randomly. It's shaped by something you've already seen before. A study tracking facial trust judgments found that people are more likely to extend trust to faces that resemble previous faces they've judged positively. In other words, if someone reminds you, even unconsciously, of a person who once treated you well, your brain quietly borrows that old trust and applies it to the stranger in front of you. You're not meeting a new person. You're meeting a composite of every face that came before them. That's why you sometimes feel instant, inexplicable comfort around someone you've just met, and why you sometimes feel a cold, wordless caution around someone who hasn't done anything wrong at all. Somewhere in their features, your brain has found an echo, a jaw that resembles a kind teacher from years ago, a smile that resembles someone who once let you down. You will never consciously trace the connection. It happens beneath the level of language, in the same fast, silent system that once scanned a ridge for danger. The stranger isn't being judged on their own merits at all. They're being judged on a memory wearing a different face. Here's the twist that makes this even stranger. Once your brain makes that snap call, it doesn't stay neutral. It starts looking for evidence to confirm itself. This is a well-documented psychological pattern. Once you decide someone is trustworthy, you interpret their ambiguous behavior charitably. A late reply becomes their busy. A short answer becomes their just direct. But once you decide someone is untrustworthy, the exact same behaviors become evidence against them. A late reply becomes their avoiding me. A short answer becomes their hiding something. Notice that the behavior never changed. Only the lens did. A new manager who happened to remind you of a beloved mentor gets the benefit of every doubt for months. A new neighbor who happened to remind you of someone who once betrayed your trust gets scrutinized for the smallest inconsistency. Neither one has actually proven anything yet. Your 7-second verdict simply decided which version of the story you'd be willing to hear. The first 7 seconds don't just create an impression, they create a lens, and that lens quietly edits everything you see afterward. Social psychologists have a name for the deeper mechanism behind this: confirmation bias. The tendency to seek and favor information that supports what you already believe. Your stranger judgment isn't an isolated event. It's the opening move in a much longer pattern of selectively gathering evidence to prove your gut feeling right, which means the story you tell yourself about getting to know someone is partly an illusion. You're not discovering who they are. You're confirming who your first impression already decided they were. So what do you do with a brain like this? You can't switch off ancient circuitry, but you can recognize when it's running. The next time you meet someone and feel an instant pull toward trust or distrust, ask yourself a simple question. Is this about them? Or is this about every face that came before them? This matters more than it sounds like it should. The job candidate you instantly liked might just resemble someone unrelated who once made you feel at ease. The new acquaintance who set off a quiet alarm might simply share a jawline with someone from your past who hurt you. Neither feeling is a lie exactly. It's just old data, mislabeled as new information. Knowing that doesn't erase the feeling. But it gives you a choice your ancestors never had, the choice to pause, even briefly, before the ancient verdict becomes your final one. Because that stranger standing in front of you, waiting for coffee, sitting down next to you on the train, applying for the same job, isn't actually a stranger to your brain at all. Your brain has already met someone like them, decades ago, on a ridge that doesn't exist anymore. In a world that stopped needing this particular kind of fear a very long time ago, and it decided, in 7 seconds, whether you'd survive. You met someone new today. Your brain just doesn't believe that's true.